Sorry. I would like to introduce our guest tonight, Mr. Ezekiel Mulondo. He is already on the call with us. And before we go on to, sorry, kindly someone mute their microphone. Okay, thank you very much. Before we go on further, I'd like to have Mr. Ezekiel introduce himself. We are having the best because he's an AI engineer and he's also a financial strategist. So we're going to have this conversation from one who has experience. So Mr. Ezekiel, karibu sana. Please introduce yourself before we dive into the conversation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning for those that are in a different part of the world. I believe this meeting gathers people from everywhere, all walks of life. So wherever you are, I send greetings and blessings to you. Ezekiel Mulondo. I work with the Stanbic Bank at the Stanbic Bank AI Center of Excellence. I've been there roughly 6 months now. Yes, previously I was working with NSSF Uganda for a few years, but I've worked with several banks, supporting them in implementing AI solutions. I've represented the country, various AI conferences, but also support different governments, particularly on this continent, in realizing their goals. I'll be in Kenya sometime next week, so hope I'll see you soon. And yeah, that's it from me, and glad to be here. Over to you, Faith.
Amazing. We are glad to have you on board. Thank you for honoring our invite. And I'll just allow us to go straight into it, but I will start from where you are. You are an AI engineer and you are currently working for Stanbic Bank to do AI solutions at their center. But more than just that, as you have said, you have represented different organizations and even countries. Probably you could bring to light at what rate is AI growing? What should we be on the lookout for? I mean, right now you wake up and there's always something new. And for people who have not really been able to have a chance to interact with AI, they might not really know what AI specialists call deepfake and what is real anymore. So can you tell us from your experience, how fast have you seen AI grow? Mr. Ezekiel, can you hear me?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Sorry.
Okay, thank
So
you.
let me start this way. A couple of years ago, we were working on a project to really drive with Bank of Uganda. They have a financial inclusion program, and they needed to advance financial literacy in this country like never before. And they employed, I think, hundreds of people in different parts of the country to push, of course, prepared material, prepared certifications. I think that program is still running. It's called the Financial Literacy Program, Trainers of Trainers, right? And around that point, of course, AI came to the center stage. And many of us, I think, remember that I think most people, especially in this part of the world, or in particular professions began to hear about AI when ChatGPT came. ChatGPT came, and within a couple of weeks, there were, I think, 100 million users. Right now, I think it averages, I think, 900 million users, I think, daily. Okay. So I remember around that time, I sit in this meeting and I'm like, okay, there must be there must be a better way. There must be a better way of sharing this information um, in various local languages, for instance, right? People are being sent to different parts of the country. And of course, a lot of stuff happened around there. But in essence, that program was not as successful as they had hoped it to be, right? So in comes the discussion of AI, and of course, the earlier systems were really RAG systems, retrieve augmented systems. You put in a question, it answers you. But we began to think, how can we introduce other languages, actually, Swahili, but in the context of financial literacy and in the context of Uganda? Why? Why was that important? Do a simple random Google search and ask, how can I save? How can I invest? Immediately, the top information that will come will either be citing sources from Bloomberg, it will be citing sources from Harvard Business Review, it will be citing sources probably from Johannesburg or Cape Town, and even sometimes Nairobi, right? But how is that relevant to the goat farmer, for instance? How is it relevant to the poultry farmer? How is it relevant to the border rider? Okay. How is it relevant to that lady in the market who only knows how to save using saving boxes and circles? Okay. So information was, I would say, limited in terms of its availability and in the context that this entity, this central bank, needed it. Of course, we begin research and we come up with a product that really can share this information on demand and in different local languages. Now, that product has served over, I think, I would say over 70,000 people to date. Um, that really began because of, yes, the technology had come. Of course, I was very much into statistics then, but there was a curiosity applied on this technology. So when you ask that question, it takes me back to that period of time. Of course, when it comes to Africa, there is a lot of work that we still need to do. I see many emerging voices to speak that speak about AI, but really, in my discussions here on this call today, I hope that we go beyond just being aroused by the idea and beyond just using ChatGPT for to draft an email or draft a WhatsApp message, to actually going a step further to creating meaningful value, to creating $1 million businesses, or even $1 million ideas that you can then sell and make money. So that's really what I can say to that. I hope I have answered your question. Um, yeah.
Oh, yes, you have answered with a real life situation, which I believe applies to the people who are in Uganda. They can be able to translate that. And I like what you're saying, that we should move beyond just using ChatGPT for normal conversations and looking for more solution oriented things. And that will bring me back to a question. You created a solution for the people of Uganda, and they're now able to get information. But were you also able to create a solution for them in such a way that once they get this information, you have bridged the gap between knowledge and actual action? Because I believe what we currently are facing It's not necessarily a knowledge problem, but how to put that knowledge into practical wisdom, for lack of a better word, something that can be done practically to get results. Mr.
Okay,
Ezekiel?
so I would approach that in this manner. During that period, can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. So I would approach that in this manner. During that period, there was I think there was a, a farmer, I think in the side of Entebbe, right? And this person um, was experiencing a challenge. They, they had, I think, one of the most prominent stores. I think veterinary doctors in the area um, had closed down. Okay, so of course they didn't believe much in the platform because it was new, and so they give it a try. They try and try and find the closest veterinary doctor and in the area. Can't quite remember quite well if it was veterinary or but I think it was veterinary, yes. So this person gets onto that platform and they out of, I would say, not too much faith um that it would give them an answer. And here, by the way, I don't really want to focus on the wonder or the technical bit of it, but really I want to focus on the possibilities, yes. So they get into this and they send an audio. It was a speech to text, and they send it in their local language. Okay. So the agent pulls up a map and location of the nearest. Now, they it had not occurred to them that there were even people that were good enough and even better than the agent than the veterinary people that they had before. So we randomly selected that particular response and that particular question and called this person back to find out if this information was useful and what they liked about it. And he just said convenience, convenience. Okay, bringing it home. Um, Information right now is at our fingertips. You can learn anything in, I would say, in a matter of hours. There are projects that we've done, and if I'm to go back, these projects would have taken now. I'm a statistician. My background is statistics, a bit of economics, but I develop solutions, right? If I'm to go back, if I was a software engineer, right, the type of solutions that we have done would take a minimum of 8 months per solution, and that's just prototyping. Okay. In this day and age, you can prototype in a couple of hours. In fact, in a couple of minutes. Okay. Just the other night, I think 2 weeks ago, the government released, they released areas that they want innovation in. And so I get on my laptop, and my passion that day was to just look at real estate, the real estate industry, you know. And I'm not I haven't done a lot of real estate, but there are some pains that I had around that time, and I still do. One, the cost of finding a house is expensive, right? There is no reliable way to find a house online. Okay, there are thugs in the industry, brokers that don't mean well. Okay, you can't locate good houses by yourself, even if you wanted to. The other thing is that an individual can pay rent for 20 years, okay? And they have no record. For instance, if I pay rent of, let's say, 2 million shillings, I don't know how much that is in Kenya shillings, and I consistently pay 2 million shillings for rent for 20 years, how much money would that be? That information by itself is very useful to the bank. Why? A bank can give you a mortgage simply because you pay rent consistently. There are products called rent to own that you can rent a house simply because you're able to pay your rent, even if you've been paying rent for 3 years consecutively, faithfully. You qualify for something, right? But there's a gap in our industry, and that was my pain. So I get onto my laptop and I do some research. By the end of that night, I had a proposal, a full proposal. In the next few days, of course, I made a few phone calls here and there, a few partners in Dubai here and there. Within a week, I had an offer to come to Dubai to prototype, to go to Dubai to prototype a solution. Am I a software engineer? No, right? But I have a desire to change how things work for the better, right? The other thing I thought was so disturbing is that sometimes when I pay to my landlord, right, because he has a lot of properties within and outside the country, sometimes he would call me and ask, hey, I noticed that I just wanted to confirm, have you really paid rent this month? So that thing disturbed me so much. So I wanted to solution for it. How did I start? I get on to my laptop and I start doing research. How are people doing it? What are the existing solutions? What would be the perfect product? And I'm putting all these things together, piecing together all these things. I get off my machine at about 4 a.m. Tomorrow morning, I'm making phone calls. A week later, I have a request to come and present from people I had never imagined. Okay, how did it start? I saw an ad. I saw one of the fields that they are looking at, which is real estate and something. I begin to solution, but then I realized that if I pitch this to government, they will be slow. So I start pitching to people here and there, and immediately solutions begin to happen. I believe this solution is going to change this country. So there is more to how we solution, moving from ideation to actually actioning. There is more to that. And the answers are right in front of us. Thank you.
Amazing. I like how you talk about the quality of being curious, and that has led you to ideate solutions. So it will be quite important to say that in as much as you are getting the knowledge as our listener, what are you curious about? What problem are you looking to solve? Are you just looking within your area and you're not thinking big, you're not thinking fast, because opportunity comes when you open up yourself and you're able to see these things and think in terms of solutions, not only for one person, but to the larger scale. So you have talked about curiosity being a key element in terms of learning, and you have said that right now information is readily available. Yes, you can prototype in minutes, but now let's talk about now the art of learning itself. I understand that you're curious, but maybe someone else might not necessarily be curious, or they have just not realized that they can be curious. So, in this time and era where we are having a lot of information available, there is information overload. Sincerely speaking, we have been told previously that the information released in the last 2 years has been a lot more than the information that was the previous years combined. So, in this era and age of information overload, and AI specifically, where now everything is like we don't need to use Google anymore. I really doubt that people use a lot of Google. And even in Google, they have embedded a Gemini AI that can help you to search something out faster. So I believe that people have shorter attention spans, lesser attention to details, and they are just consuming information as it comes. How do you create a culture of learning outside just going with what is trending or what is readily available? How do you prepare yourself to learn? Because we still need people to do research, we still need people to read their emails, we still need people to validate the information that has been generated. Yeah. How do we get people back to the art of learning? Solutions are coming in easier, but how do we get back to just that art of knowing how to learn? Mr. Ezekiel, please.
All right, that's an interesting one. Well, you mentioned something there, and no one can teach you how to be curious. Curiosity is as a result of, I would say, a number of factors, chief of which is your surrounding and your environment and your heart, basically, genuinely your heart. Let me start by how I learn. Okay. So I'm on a platform called, I'm on various platforms, but I'll speak about TikTok, for instance, and how I manipulate the algorithm to my favor. So every day for 30 minutes or so, I'll get into the platform, okay, and scroll. Every video that I don't think is beneficial for me, I will sort of like click, long press, and say, not interested. So I do that multiple times every day, okay? And when you go to my feed right now, it is educational, strictly education. Of course, sometimes a bit of gossip here and there sips in, creeps in, but primarily, how I find out things that are happening in the world is on that platform. So I've learned to tweak it. So every time I scroll like this, for 30 minutes or so, I am consuming information and learning something new. So, for instance, the news that Claude has a new model called Fable, which is a degraded version of Mythos, right? A model that caused a star because of its ability to penetrate every operating system in the world. I learned and found out that this new model has been launched on that platform. I have notifications tailored to me on my Google feed. My Google feed sends me notifications about recent AI papers, recent tools, things that are happening in the world, specifically for me. Specifically for me. So my feed is tailored to me, not to gossip, but to what I want to find out. A few years ago, I was very interested in social media. I still am. And what I needed to learn in that period of time is how to push certain messages further than they should have gone, how to implement search engine optimization, how to monetize platforms, YouTube, and all these things. And I learned a lot that way. Okay. Right now, of course, through social media, tailored to me, because it's one thing, and you must be very stable by that, because it's one thing getting onto this platform and you get sucked into the cares of this world. You get sucked into the things that are happening around you, the gossip that is happening. That's one thing, right? It's one thing to be sucked into that. But it is one thing using these platforms to actually gain and learn and have a deep understanding about the topics that are relevant to you. The other thing I want to talk about is that I learn by building. Okay. When I wanted to understand speech to text technology, I didn't take a course. I didn't subscribe to a course on Coursera. I didn't, enroll to a university to understand this. Matter of fact, couple of years ago, I enrolled for a master's course somewhere. Of course, I excelled so much, but I realized that I could actually even, not being proud, I could actually now teach the class, right? But I didn't learn by just observing, but I learned to tinker with these technologies, okay? So I ended up building, I ended up, exercising myself to that. The other thing that I want to talk about regarding staying curious, right? Curiosity is not the same as being anxious, right? Because a lot of people see AI advancing right now and they fear, okay? But I choose to see it as an invitation. So every new capability is a new tool I can learn, okay? So I choose to stay relevant in that manner. I always joke when I look at my son to myself, I say, you know what, this young man might in a few years know a lot, but I can guarantee him he will have very close competition. He won't be able to lie to me about what's happening. Why? Because I desire to stay informed. Okay, so three things. Cultivate. So it's better because it's better when you have a sort of like a daily opportunity to learn, because that compounds over time. After 6 months, you realize you know a lot, right? Because every day there is a period or section of your time that you take off to just learn. It could be reading a book, it could be researching, it could be through your notifications, it could be, there are very many ways to learn right now. Okay. The other thing is learning by building. Okay. So you may not be so technical like I am, but you may be a writer. Okay. You may be a writer of ideas, right? So you formulate this thing in your mind and then you start, researching, putting together a document, a proposal, and then that thing shouldn't stay in your computer. It shouldn't stay in your email or your hard drive. No, share it with somebody. Share it with somebody that you think um is connected enough to where you want to go. Okay, they will give you a few ideas that they might even criticize, right? But it matters that you do actually share this. The other thing is that do not be anxious, because curiosity is not the same as some people look at these things and they're like, you know what, this is just too much for me. Let me just go off the platforms. Let me just switch off notification. Let me just black out. My friend, you must learn to filter information that comes to you, process it, so that you avoid the danger that you talked about, which is information overload. It's very possible to fill your mind with things that won't build you. It's very, very possible. It is highly possible. The other thing maybe I will talk about is, as you listen, you might be a reader, you might be a listener. I listen more through an application called Audible. I have a curated list of topics and books that I on a daily, at least, have to, indulge myself with same principle. I may not have an hour to sit down and listen, but if it is to walk from here, to my car, and that walk would be 10 minutes, I'll switch on and learn. Okay. So over time, that compounds. Okay. But it's not just about compounding, build something, do something, write down your ideas. Okay. Because when you write down your ideas, when you write down your vision, chances are high they will translate into something. Share them with someone trusted. Not everyone is your friend, but probably your mentor. They will guide you, they will help you, they will guide you on how to advance this amazing. That's how many great ideas begin. Thank you so much.
Amazing. That's really a gold mine out there that you should firstly cultivate a desire to learn before you can come up with ways in which you can learn, which is a very important thing. And I like the concept that you said learn by building. I have always told people that the easiest way to understand something is that you teach it. And sometimes the people you're even teaching to, they think that you know everything, but truly, you're also learning with them as you go along the way, which is a very interesting concept. You actually read a statement and you try to break it down to them, but you discover you understand it better. So, learning by building, it's true. And then the compounding effect. Isn't it funny that with all this rise in technology, we have learned the art of instant gratification? I have never really thought about information compounding over time, and it's important that we be patient in the learning process, maximize every single minute that you have to be able to learn, to be able to gain a skill, to be able to practice something that you already know, and that will be working for your benefit down the line. Kindly, if you have any questions, please make sure to post them on the comment section. Use the comment section, address the questions to Mr. Ezekiel. We'll have a moment where we'll be having these conversations back to back, and you're still allowed to share the link, invite someone. The conversation is live on YouTube, so you can also share that link to your friends, to your statuses, to your family. Allow them join and have this information. Now, I like how we have taken a different turn into the aspect of learning. But I also want to ask something with reference to that. I mean, it's true you can culture the algorithms to help us understand better and position yourself to learn more. Of course, you first must know what you want. The question I want to ask now is from a broader perspective. Do you think, with what is happening, the aspect of AI tools coming into play and the whole model of technology and algorithms coming into play, do you think one way or another these whole features are widening the gap when it comes to learning and actually actualizing things? For example, what I mean is that if we look at the current educational systems and even governmental systems, we are still stuck in the analog ways of doing things. And sometimes it's true, analog is the best way to go, but I feel like we're losing traction with what is already happening in the world. We might be lagging behind on a few things here and there. That's a personal opinion. So I want to hear from you with what you have seen, how you have interacted with AI already, even from a professional perspective. Do you think it's widening the gap of learning between those who already know and now the larger majority of people, and how this is affecting careers and the availability of opportunities as well? Over to you, Mr. Ezekiel.
Kindly, do you mind rephrasing that question a little for me?
All right, no problem. This is my question. With the current technological advancements that we already have, and let's look at it from an African context with how Africa has been named and shaped. Not necessarily true, but how it has been named and shaped. And with all these technological advancements that are happening every day, would you consider that the growth and the rise of AI is actually bringing a wider knowledge gap? That is, what people should know and what they actually know right now, and how they can use that information. Does technology make you see that there is a wider educational gap, or do you see technology as something that bridges that gap and offers opportunity to people to rise up or step up, actually?
Yeah, so so we are at a very unique period in time, especially for especially for Africa. It's very unique in its sense, in every sense, sorry. I would say that technology and AI offer, um, or should I say, break down any barrier to learning and growth and progress. So I believe this here is an opportunity for Africa to build solutions for Africa. Have you guys ever noticed that um, I mean, everyone here uses mobile money. In Kenya, you have M-Pesa. In Uganda, we have mobile money and Airtel money. But when you travel off the continent, even off the continent is very far. When you go down to South Africa, um, you will find that people don't actually know what mobile money is. They don't actually use it. Okay. And yet for us, this, I mean, imagine a life without mobile money. Okay. Um, so many fintechs around the continent are building off that foundation to say that this is what we have. This is Africans. Most Africans understand mobile money. You go deep down to the villages. Everyone knows what mobile money is. So this is a solution tailored for Africa. What AI is offering is an opportunity for us to build more solutions like that. And it's a very unique period of time. The barriers are broken. Okay. So a while ago, many years ago, even up to now, I think in some contexts, we knew that when you get a degree, you're finished, right? You have finished. I would argue that primarily if I'm sending my child to school right now to get a degree, it is primarily for two or three things. One, to know how to concentrate, sit down, and achieve something on their own. The second thing is to meet other people, to meet other peers, to meet people because people are important, right? Because the degree at the end of the day, is in its entirety is not what it was a few years ago. I would argue that when you finish, is there someone asking a question?
No, not really. Sorry for the interruption. It was an unmuted mic.
Okay. So where was I? So yes. So you go to school, get your degree, but I feel that that is the start. Now you get into the notion that, or to the foundation, or to the building blocks of teaching yourself in order to advance your career. Going back to the question of Africa, it is an opportunity for us never seen before. Barriers are broken. Okay, barriers and boundaries are broken. What the Harvard student knows, you can also know. The only thing they may not have, you may not have access to, that they do have, are the people and the fintechs and Silicon Valley and all these places. But all those things, as we're about to see, do not won't really matter going forward. Why? Because barriers have been broken. Information is at our fingertips, and we are able to build. Right now, Kenya is attracting, I think, the best of the best. Google has offices there. AWS, I think, is there. I think Meta is setting up a data center there. What does that mean? It means that information is even going to become cheaper to obtain. Okay, we now have Starlink in Uganda. That brings down internet costs. So you will be able to, to learn, to build. Barriers are no longer there. They are non-existent, I would say, especially if you're in the school. There shouldn't be any barrier to you learning. So going to the subject of opportunities for Africans to really, do great things. I met someone um, a couple of weeks ago, and they just recently got an amazing um, job with European Union. And amazingly, they were using they were using AI to make podcasts. So they would go, I think, upload a bit of what they believed, I think a bit of content that they believed would add value to others. And they would upload it in a tool called Notebook LM. Now, Notebook LM is a platform that you can use to study, and now it had skipped my mind that you can actually even make podcasts off of that. So they begin to make podcasts and audio podcasts, and they begin to distribute. As they're distributing, they land on a person that would be their next employer. But I found that very amazing because the simplicity in which it happened. right? The simplicity in which it happened. So I must insist that um, the barriers are primarily in the mind. Okay. So that's the primary barrier that should be broken. That's the gap that should be broken. There is no barrier relating to technology as we speak. Okay. Why? Because information is now readily available for all of us to consume.
Amazing. That brings a whole lot of a difference and a great mind shift that technology is not coming in to build a gap, but it is actually bridging everyone. I believe we have all heard the saying that the world is now a global village. I mean, you can access USA from your phone, you can access Australia from your phone, and even all of you who have had the opportunity to change proxy addresses or even use VPN, you have been in different locations while still being wherever you are just by the touch of a button. And that is really important for us to see that we are having an opportunity served on a platter to our hands, and it is for us to be able to open up our minds and to see these things. Probably you can also chip into the mindset that comes with now seeing these opportunities. What would you speak to someone as a mindset that they should adopt when trying to see the opportunities that are coming along with technology? And probably what are some of those strategies as an individual that you should embrace to position yourself to be able to be knowledgeable and technical in this era where now technology is served on a silver platter?
Okay, um, so 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 let's talk about I think mindset for a little while. Um, so yes, it's true that the biggest barrier to your progress is not skill. No, it is not skill. It is not skill, and it has never been skill. It is actually mindset. Okay. So what what are those things that you feel or you believe are holding you down from progressing? Let's just start from there. What are those things um that you've built up, those castles that you've built up in your mind? Okay. You may not have come from a well-to-do family, or you might have. Doesn't matter. Okay. You might have, you might even have had a bit of trauma, uh, you know, in the past. You may not have been to the best universities, to the best schools. You may not have come from a family that is connected a certain way. Okay, you may not even ever have been on a plane off the continent or even off, the boundaries of this nation. All right, but you're responsible. You're responsible for tomorrow. You're responsible for how your future looks like starting now, right now. It is your responsibility right now to shape your future. Shaping your future will begin from how you process information. The way you see the world is an exact replica of how you internalize issues, for instance. Okay. There's a book that I really love to go through and through it all the time, that many times actually. It's called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. And in that book, he begins to talk about how you see things as being a direct reflection. It's a direct reflection of your status in life. So every barrier that you see is actually it's actually being formulated from your mind. So the sooner you learn to, be intentional about breaking some of those things that threaten your future, number one, that threaten your progress and threaten your relationships even, is the sooner that you'll begin to progress. Okay, so again, biggest barrier is not skill, because we've in our previous in a few minutes ago we're talking about how you can acquire any skill that you want. I think some people argue this is very interesting, that some people argue that um well, let me give you this example. A few years from now, we know that uh, pilots will not necessarily be those that get into the plane to fly it. No, they'll be seated somewhere in the comfort of their home, and you've seen how these guys drive, pilot drones thousands of kilometers away, right? And these things can actually be learned from a simulator in the comfort of your area, of your locality. Okay, we've seen that there's news right now that a doctor in Spain can operate someone in Uganda, okay, using robotics, right? And I suspect that in the next couple of years, you would not need 5 years to become a doctor, right? Recently, a couple of months ago, we built a tool that can replace lawyers, right? You know those clerks in those chambers that are responsible for gathering information, putting things together, writing, plausible judgments and whatnot. We built a tool that can actually uh, do research within the context of the law of Uganda, pull out any plausible and possible judgment that any judge can make, reference all the cases that have ever happened in Uganda and East Africa, and then build a case for the council to walk into the courtroom. Right. So these things are already happening. Right. Did we build these things because we have a lot of skill in the law? No, we've never been in a law classroom. We build them because we believed we can. Okay. So I'll reiterate, the biggest barrier isn't skill. It is mindset. AI is not for tech people. No, it's not. It's for anyone who is willing, I would argue, to type a question and iterate on that answer. Okay. So it's like going down a rabbit hole. I was now yesterday, I wanted to find out why was Michael Jackson, now my mind is very crazy, but I wanted to find out why was Michael Jackson loved. Why was he loved? What is the spirituality around Michael Jackson? I read all the sources, all the texts that has been written, reverends that have written about him. I've read what spiritualists used to say. All of them concluded one thing and said, this guy learned how to portray love. He learned how to portray love, and that's why people loved him. He would enter concerts and people faint. Just seeing him, people faint. Okay, so I now understood that love is central to my going forward, but in a way that I never knew. Okay, so I'm really just giving you insight into um, some of the ways that you can go about these things. Okay, so yeah, I believe I've done the question, and please feel free to tell me if I haven't done the question justice. I would be more than glad to, to sort of like shed more light. Yeah.
Honestly, at this particular point, I am really tempted to ask more about Michael Jackson because I was curious of the same factor, and I have just been thinking. This guy died like a couple of years ago, 2009, if I am right. I believe I am. Yet, in just a short period of time just because we had another film come up to talk about him. It has starred a worldwide sort of reincarnation of this particular gentleman to the extent that even people who didn't know about him are actually listening to him. That's on a light note, though, but I appreciate your curiosity and thank you for shedding more light into that particular dimension as well, in as much as it was off topic. Thank you very much. We will be rounding up in a few, so please, if you have any questions that you would like to ask Mr. Ezekiel, feel free to do so, even if it's outside the confines of our conversation. He is a well read man and he can be able to answer anything, I believe, at this particular point in time. Yes, you have highlighted a few things on how to really work on your mindset, which is a good thing. But I would like to also ask a bit of a controversial question. Do you think there is need to exercise balance when dealing with AI and just having basic human judgment or morality, perhaps? Do you think there is need for a balance in how we handle AI?
Okay. Can you hear me? Sorry, I was on mute. Has anyone here heard about chatbot psychosis, or perhaps what some people refer to as AI psychosis? Has anyone heard about it? Just if anyone can unmute and just if anyone has heard about it.
I have, but I will allow someone else to unmute. So kindly, please feel free to use the chat box or unmute actually and talk. I can see something on the Okay, that's a question on the comment section.
Mm,
Anyone who has an
mm.
idea of what chatbot psychosis is, kindly unmute.
Okay, so let me help. So uh chatbot psychosis, some people call it AI psychosis or AI syndrome or AI induced psychosis or creeping cognitive displacement syndrome is actually, I think, a phenomenon where prolonged and heavy use of AI can trigger you. It can trigger you and amplify, or even distort thinking or delusions, especially if you're vulnerable. If you're not emotionally stable, you can end up in some dark hole. I met a dear lady, and this lady was telling me about her relationship, and she was using all these fancy words of, I feel like my boyfriend is gaslighting me, is narcissistic, is all these things. So I listened for like 30 minutes to 1 hour, saying nothing. And believe me, it was painful, but I had to, because I've learned that listening is actually an important thing going forward. Yes, if we are to change this world. So I sat, I listened, and I began then to ask questions. Why do you think so? Oh, because it does this, is this, is that, is this, even what? So a few hours into the conversation, she pulls out her phone and shows me her chat, right? Her, her chat GPT, right? And I then, begin now to dissect and understand that this person has been led into some dark hole and it will only take God to draw them out. Okay, of course, it is for the weak, because the only reason why they were led into this is because they were not stable enough. And sorry, I may digress a little from the conversation, from the question of balance, but I'll come back to it. Right. So it's a very real phenomenon. That is why it's very important to develop your inner man as much as possible. Why? Because emotional intelligence is very important. Okay. Many of the chatbot systems that AI systems that we have right now are deeply flawed. They are very flawed. You may not understand the back end, but they are flawed in that they will tell you what you want to hear, for instance. Okay. So you find that this has become a phenomenon and people are becoming sick because of that, right? Like any technology, really, there will be people that will misuse it. There's a company, a very big company, who was blocked from accessing a particular AI platform because one of their employees put in the chat, "How do I create Hunter virus?" Okay, they want to create a virus and they believe AI can do what? Can help them. Okay, so balance is more of where your heart lies, where your spirit is at, and if you are not careful, and if you're unstable, especially emotionally, you might end up in a place with a companion that is that is something else. Okay. So again, it's important to build your inner man. Okay. Um, there are people that I know that um, won't use social media because it will trigger them. Okay. There are people that lack self-control in that when they get onto this platform, instead of probably learning, they go into other things. It's possible. There are people that use these these platforms for vice. Okay, so it's very important to build yourself and remain steadfast in what you want. Okay, what do you want from this platform? Okay, some people have become doctors and they are self-medicating. Okay, they get a headache, describe all the symptoms, and they go to ChatGPT and it tells them this. It scares them into into something else. Okay, so thereby distorting their faith. It's important to consider this technology as merely an enabler, right? An enabler to help you get on the bicycle, but you'll have to pedal. You should steer. You should steer this technology, not allow it to steer you. So even as you're ideating, okay, it's very important to have a picture. It can just give you a few ideas here, but you have to guide. Some people call it prompt engineering. Okay. Yes, it's giving you all these things, but it can easily gaslight you. you know. So I've been learning some of those words. So balance is key, balance is important. And it majorly depends on your inner man, how strong and stable you are, because some of these systems can trigger you into a dark place, especially if you don't know who you are. So build your inner man. And that is it's a daily affair. You know, you must understand who you are. If you don't know who you are, these systems can even alter your character. can alter you, they can alter your character and you become something else. So that's the dark side. Okay. The other side of balance is that don't think because you have all this information at your fingertips that you're all of a sudden an expert, right? You may not be. There is a syndrome called Dunning-Kruger effect. You start to build until you realize that you know what, I didn't know much after all. So you must balance the both. There are some really nice ways AI can get you into rooms, but it also matters what you say when you get into those rooms. You won't have a chatbot at your side to answer some of the questions. I will deal with some of life's issues. Okay, desist from seeking issues to do with answers to issues to do with life, for instance, you know that right now there are people that prepare someone on ChatGPT. They'll prepare someone on ChatGPT and come and so there are things that technology will not replace, and those are really around um, you know guarding your heart, because out of it um, flow the issues of life, building yourself up by, it doesn't also have to sit down and read a book, on that particular subject that you want to, to become an expert in vis-a-vis AI. So there must be balance, and I could say more about that, but I believe I have answered well.
Absolutely, absolutely. You have touched on a very key fundamental aspect that, in as much as you are trying to learn and keep up with what AI and technology is bringing along, building your inner man is a daily affair, and that's the place of balance. That's the place of stability. That's the place where you are putting everything in check and you are able to decipher information just to know that this is where we draw the line between what I should take and what I should not consume. Interesting thing that you have spoken about knowing how to think that you will not always carry a chatbot into an interview room or a panel discussion. That one is a good one. But just to wrap this up, probably my final question for the day before I check into what others have to say. I want to ask you, how do you think or how do you train your mind to actually think? Because I don't think right now we do a lot of thinking. I read a particular blog. It was an interesting one. And it said that in present day society, people reshare other people's thoughts because they don't have their own thoughts. That was an article that was written somewhere in February, and they were trying to investigate how people currently don't have language for things anymore. You communicate an issue to someone, and the best they can do is they tell you, I feel you, bro, or they send you a meme, or they send you a sticker. Individuals are losing the capacity to hold intelligent conversations that actually build people up or position them for better. So how do we, in an era where technology is already here and we cannot do anything about it, how do we train our people to start thinking, to have original thoughts and not just own people's ideas as their own? I believe that would be my last question for the night. Thank you, Mr. Ezekiel.
Okay, so how do you how do you think without being without having a foundation? What do you even think about, How do you think without being grounded? It's true that what you said, some some people are moving on, other thoughts, but how do you how do you think when you don't even know how to think? Is a question that I think I'm asking myself right now, you know, because like we spoke earlier, that your perspective, how you see life, and how you process information, because people process and see things differently. They see things differently, you know. Um, One of the things I was thinking about really earlier today was there's a gentleman that died in a mob attack earlier this week. And in my mind, I was asking myself, what were these people seeing, when this happened? Because the mob attack is, you might be influenced by other people, and then you end up, also in the same. important. But how do you, what was on their minds? What was on their hearts? And I believe the devil, I think, orchestrated this attack, right? Because he came to steal, kill, and destroy, right? But again, your thought process is influenced by what you hear, what you see, what you fill your heart with, and your soul. Okay? Primarily, primarily, primarily. So when you say that people are unable to, let's say, even hold conversation, why? Because there's no grounding. You can't speak what you don't know. You can't have an intellectual conversation when you don't have any intellectual grounding in you. The only way you are able to have a conversation is actually if you are able to speak about something that is not gossip, for instance. Okay, so we're in an era where conversations right now are influenced a lot by what is happening in the media or what we've been told. And many people are unable to process information, they're unable to think for themselves, and they take life as they see it. Okay, so for them, everything that they see is gospel truth. Okay, so for instance, if you desire to, let's say, make some good money, become wealthy, right? You must change your orientation and think differently because you can't keep doing the same thing for years that hasn't turned into wealth or a gold mine and still expect that someday it will happen. All right. So, in terms of thinking, changing our minds, and orienting ourselves to think and actually contribute to society, number one, we must be grounded in truth. And for truth, I'll point you to scripture, I'll point you to someone. Find yourself a mentor, spiritual mentor. Find yourself a grounding in that aspect, someone who can teach you the things of this life, the ways of life, the principles of life. Right? Right. I'll tell you something amazing. I've studied multiple corporations and how they've managed to survive for generations. Far beyond their initial creators or creators, far beyond the original framers of the idea of those nations, of those corporations, and even nations, right? And one thing cannot be disputed, and that is principles, right? I'll give you one principle. In organization or corporations, is what they call corporate social responsibility. Okay. Now, of course, to some, corporate social responsibility might be a nice thing. It might be a nice way to give back to community, but it's actually rooted in principle. It's actually rooted in the principles that govern this world, which is giving to the poor, giving to the widows, giving to the less fortunate. Okay. So the only way you can understand and learn these things is actually filling yourself up with a different kind of a right orientation or wisdom or knowledge. You can't give what you don't have, right? Um, you can't, for instance, hold or think or involve yourselves in conversations that are far beyond you, because when you don't have what to give, you would rather just keep quiet and listen and sit and listen and learn. Okay, so you can't contribute to society when you're empty. Okay, the only way you will be able to contribute to society is when you fill yourself up with the right kind of wisdom and orient yourself to a direction that is full of purpose. Okay, so of course that has a lot to do with what we feed ourselves with. I like to feed myself with a word. I like to read um, from proven authors that have stood the test of time. I like to associate myself with people that are able to advance me, because show me who you spend most of your time with. I'll show you, you know, how you like most likely to end up. So these are things that you deliberately have to do, and there is no way around them. You must be hungry for knowledge and wisdom, the right kind of knowledge and wisdom. You must be hungry to associate yourself with people that are able to build you, to build you in a certain way. You must be able to fill yourself with wisdom and knowledge, and there are various ways to do this, right? Like I told you initially, I subscribe to Audible. Okay. I'm not as good as if you give me a novel of, let's say, 500 pages, yes, it's good. But if I listen to the author narrating his story and testimony, I am, you know, I can go the whole way, right? So that's how I learn. You may not be like me, but it is important that you're deliberate in some of these things. Um, yeah. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. You cannot pour from an empty cup, so it's important for you to firstly learn how you learn and then have a moment in time where you can sit down and internalize that information. Just sync it with what you know and what you believe, and then pick what is beneficial, dump the rest, and then you can be able to contribute meaningfully. Isn't it interesting that even at the speed of change, there are some things that still require you to be slow? Because you can't rush reading, you can't rush learning, you can't rush accumulation of knowledge. It's something that you cultivate over time. And like they say, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the next best time to plant that tree is now. So if you feel like you have a deficit in information and knowledge, this would be the best time to start building knowledge and having something for you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mulondo. But before we go, would like you to answer a question that we have here. Someone is asking, they first asked, how can one embrace AI? And I believe we mentioned that as we were talking about how to just have a positive mindset, look at it from the opportunistic realm, know how to tinker around things. That is, don't just learn, play with it, build something. But now the next question was, what are some of the disadvantages that comes to the society and to the user when they are dealing with AI? I believe you highlighted something on that, but because they asked, it would be kind of you to just respond to the question again. What are some of the disadvantages, sorry? What extent does AI have a disadvantage to the society or the user? Please, if you don't mind, kindly answer that.
Okay, so there are multiple disadvantages, and I think we can really just we had talked about some of them, but we can purposefully maybe highlight some. The first is bias. Because these systems are built with different cultures and different perspectives and different viewpoints. For instance, in our culture, there are certain things that we don't subscribe to. Okay. And for us, because we don't subscribe to them, um, some of the AI systems that exist uh, can say, what, that is bias. You're not biased. You're biased towards a particular school of thought, or a particular gender, or a particular binary thought process, right? And that's in terms of gender. So bias is actually a key. You'll find it a lot even in research. As you're doing your research, there are certain things that These systems won't say. The other thing is that because we interact with these systems a lot, I see that they are gathering a lot of information about people, individuals. Now that goes into privacy. Okay. Privacy. What do people do with this information? You've told it, you're having boyfriend issues. You've told it your employment, history. You've told it you have financial. Okay, God forbid you have financial issues. You've told it all these things. What your father does, what your mother does. You've told it what your aspirations are, what your dreams are. um, I foresee a scenario where now you start to receive ads, for instance, marketing ads that are specifically targeting you. And this could be in terms of, products, could be cosmetic products, it could be certain types of content or certain types of events, that are tickling your fancy, that are triggering you, certain titles, so there are many advantages, but to humanity, those are some of the core challenges that we are looking at. um, Bias, uh, privacy. What other one can I point out? We talked of social, possibility of, social, you being engineered to a particular school of thought. So as you use some of these systems, you must be cognizant of what you feed, unless if it's your privately built system, which is very rare because they're very expensive to build. But these are problems really that have existed even before AI came. They have existed with technology. When the TVs, television stations and radios came, you know what happened. Also, this is a very touchy subject. In Rwanda, because of a particular television station, you know what happens on social media. So these are problems that are actually being amplified because of the fast-paced growth of technology. What I emphasize really is, again, build your inner man that you may be stable to know what um, to take in, because the Bible says again, it is not that which that which goes into you that defiles you, but what comes out. When you start, some people start to, to act as though they are, there are many things. There are many things there, but those are some of the disadvantages that we must look at, and be very cognizant of and aware, even as we use these systems, even as we interact with technology. But again, these things only affect the weak, the weak emotionally, the weak in terms of their inner man, when you're not grounded a certain way, when you don't have a certain foundation, um, you know, it won't even be technology or AI that will affect you, but the normal issues of life, relationships, finances. You might even open your heart up to health issues, right? Because again, that is the curse of life. Okay, so you must build yourself up. You must build the inner man. It must be a deliberate effort, to enrich your soul with things that are of great value, to have the mind of God, the mind of Christ. There is no escape. There is no hack to that. Because think about it. It's the end that matters. How you end is what matters. Okay. Yeah. I hope I haven't deviated too much from the question.
No, you have not actually have answered it very comprehensively with a very strong parting short. It's amazing how I would love to say how God speaks at this particular point in time. Thank you very much, Mr. Blondo. We are so glad to have had you. This has been a very pivotal conversation in shaping how we understand learning at the speed of change, where everything is just turning around, and every other day you wake up to a new piece of information. You wake up to something that happened in the world. You wake up to just so many things that at some point you are more or less likely to lose yourself if you don't have stability. Again, you have heard that those people who get dissuaded or carried away by what is currently happening, probability is that there is weakness somewhere, and the best way to go about it is learn how to build your inner man. That has been actually my biggest takeaway, that in a world or in an era where change is constant and actually it's coming at a speed that is totally unprecedented, building your inner man is a daily affair. It's important for you to know what you stand for, where you stand, why you stand for those particular things. And then all these other things coming around, they are not able to shake you because you are farming your identity. Thank you very much, Mr. Mulondo. It was a wonderful session. You have answered the questions beautifully. We are glad to have hosted you and we look forward to hosting you again. But perhaps I'll still give you one more minute. If you feel like there's something unsaid that you would like to put across, please do so. And then we can bid our goodbyes to the listeners and to our host. Thank you.
All right. So thank you so much for for hosting me and for joining the call. I hope I've added value to you because that is why we have these meetings. But I think I would like to leave you with maybe two or three things. Um, the first is, I would say, start before you're ready. You know, you will never feel ready enough. You know, to switch careers. You'll never feel ready enough to build that idea. You'll never feel ready enough to to learn that, or even be prepared enough to learn that skill. Um, but it's important to know that the people who are ahead of you right now didn't start because they were ready. In fact, you know, when I was transitioning into leadership, um, you know, the person that had mentored me told me that no one is ever really ready, uh, you know, to lead. Okay, so um, start before you're ready. The other thing is that if you've studied and gone to school, um, right now in this day and age, your degrees, I think I touched this. Your degree is simply your foundation. It's a foundation, it's not the ceiling. It gives you the base, you know, but the building, the building is yours, you know. Um, so the world no longer pays you for what you know. It pays you for what you can do with what you know. And I think that's very, very key. More to the subject of AI, I think the other thing I would like to say is that learn to work with it, not against it, and not without it. Okay, learn to work with it, uh, not against it because it will be futile, but again, not without it. Um, because it will amplify. Uh, this technology will amplify whoever chooses to use it. So we know that the professionals that will thrive in the next decade will not be those of most years of experience. Those years, those things are coming to an end, right? But it matters what you're able to do with it. Africa, we no longer. I think there was a question around Africa earlier today, but we Africa doesn't need permission anymore to lead. We have the youngest population on the planet right now, And we have real problems. By the way, if there's something that I forgot to mention, is that I thrive in an environment where there are things to solve. I thrive in such environments. I get bored when there's nothing to solve. Okay, so in Africa, we have real problems that are worth solving. And guess what? We have access to the same tools globally, the same tools that people in Silicon Valley have, and the same tools that we have, the same tools that people in London have, and the same tools that we currently have. So the question is not whether Africa can lead in this AI era. It's whether we will choose, to lead. So we need to start. You can start small, you can start big, but because the challenge here that I have to live with you is to start now, build something, build from where you are. And the other thing, the last final thing that I just thought about actually is be the person who pulls others forward, because everything that you learn tonight, you shouldn't keep it to yourself. Teach someone, show someone the way, show a younger sibling, share knowledge. By the way, sharing knowledge is one of the fastest ways to accelerate. Sharing knowledge is one of the fastest ways to grow, to accelerate. You know, share as much as you land on something incredible. Share it, mentor someone if you're able to. The real measure of growth is not what you accumulate, it is what you multiply. And I live with that every day. I can guarantee you, right? For everything that you've ever learned, right? For everything that you keep accumulating in terms of knowledge, for all those sermons that you've attended, right? If you want to see a really defined level of acceleration and growth, and that which you can trace, start sharing. Start sharing what you learn. You don't need to accumulate much. You don't even need to be an expert, but start talking about your expertise. Start sharing, to build someone. It could be your community, it could be your friends, it could be your family. But as long as you accumulate and keep that knowledge in the inside of you, without sharing and and just accumulating, I guarantee you, you won't move much. You won't move much. So even by me being on this call right now, I have accelerated to another degree and another level if I have added value to you, right? So, yeah, that's all I can say. And I thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. It was very insightful. I believe you have added knowledge to more than just one person on this particular platform. We are really grateful to have hosted you. We are also grateful to everyone who took their time to join. Time is far much spent, and we would like to pass our appreciations to Dr. Dan Musinguzi and Marion Mutesi. They have been really amazing friends of the Future Den family. Thank you very much for taking your time to be here and also gleaning off the wisdom. Thank you so much. This was episode 20 of Career Talks, Learning at the Speed of Change. I am sure that you have taken a parting shot with you. Please feel free to share those things that you have learned. Like we have said, you don't stay with knowledge, you pass it on. It's like legacy. Something that is good is always passed on. So please pass it on to someone, teach someone, share what you have learned, and we will be able to grow more and more from there. If you are not in the WhatsApp group, kindly let us know so that you can be added, so that you will not miss out on other sessions that are upcoming in the month of June, and probably other more sessions, not probably, but certainly other more sessions that are coming in the near future in this particular platform that we have. Otherwise, from us, it has been a wonderful evening. Thank you very much for joining once again. Thank you very much to our host, Future Den. You have been an amazing host. We have not had any glitches, and the communication has been good. Without further ado, I'd like to say good night for those who are in time zones that you can sleep. But for those who are still having their day, please enjoy your day and looking forward to meeting you again in the next conversation. Asante.